Have you ever felt so worn down, so completely undone, that even the thought of continuing seemed like too much? Like your soul sat under a silent sky, and even prayer felt heavy, like throwing words into a void. Sometimes the greatest battles don't involve swords or noise. Sometimes it's silence that wounds deepest. So before you get too cozy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe if this quiet kind of truth speaks to you. We don't rush here, we rest. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Now, dim the lights, breathe slow, and let's walk with Elijah. You're not running, you're fleeing. And it's not from enemies on chariots, but from despair that knows your name. You're Elijah, and after all the fire, all the miracles, all the bold declarations, you're empty. You thought victory would feel different. That after you stood on Mount Carmel, watched fire fall from heaven, exposed every false prophet, and proved that Yahweh is real, surely revival would break out. But instead, you hear her voice, Jezebel. I'll have your life by this time tomorrow. That's it. One sentence. And it cracks something inside you. Not because she's more powerful than God, but because your soul is already too tired to stand again. So, you run. From Jezreel to Beersheba, about 100 miles. You leave your servant behind, not because you're polite, but because you've decided something. You want to disappear. You go alone into the wilderness. One more day. And then, under the shade of a broom tree, a desert bush barely tall enough to give relief, you collapse. And for the first time, the great prophet prays not for fire or rain, but for death. I have had enough, Lord, you whisper. Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors. Isn't that strange? The man who prayed for drought and it came, who asked for fire and it fell. Now, he prays to die, and silence answers, but not forever. Now here's something peculiar. There's an old Jewish tradition that says broom trees in the desert have roots that grow incredibly deep enough to find underground water others can't. Their wood was used for charcoal, their ash mixed in cleansing rituals. It's as if even in collapse, God placed you under a tree that whispers life isn't over yet. But you don't know that. You're asleep. Not the peaceful kind. The kind where you shut down because your body doesn't know what else to do. And that's when it happens. A touch. Gentle, not urgent. An angel, not flaming or terrifying, like the stories say. Just come, get up and eat. You blink. Bread, still warm. Water, right there. No lecture. No punishment for collapsing. No call to push through. Just kindness. You eat. You drink. Then, you sleep again. And the second time, same touch. Same voice. Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you. Pause there. Because that one line is the heart of this moment. Not you failed, not you lack faith, not try harder, but I know this is too much, so I will meet you in the middle of it. That's what healing often looks like. Not an instant cure, but provision in the middle of collapse. You rise, strengthened somehow, and for 40 days and nights you walk, through silence, through heat, through memory, to Mount Horeb, the same place Moses met God in flame. You find a cave, and when the voice finally comes, it's not angry. Elijah, what are you doing here? Not because God doesn't know, but because you need to say it aloud. I've been very zealous, you cry. I did everything, and now I'm alone. And they're trying to kill me too. And maybe you expect God to argue, to remind you of the miracles, the victories. But instead, God says, go out, stand on the mountain in my presence. You obey. And then the strangest sequence unfolds. A wind so powerful it shatters rocks, but God isn't in it. An earthquake, but God isn't in it. A fire, but God isn't in it. And then, a gentle whisper. In Hebrew, called a momadaka, a still small voice. Or literally, a sound of thin silence. That's where God is. Not in the drama, not in the spectacle, but in the silence that feels like emptiness yet holds everything. And here's the strangest part. You repeat yourself. After all that you say the same words. I've been zealous, now I'm alone. But this time, God answers differently. He gives you purpose. He tells you who to anoint, who will continue the mission. He tells you you are not alone. There are 7,000 who have not bowed to Baal. And maybe your heart doesn't fully understand yet, but a crack of light enters the cave. And somehow, that's enough to start walking again. Sometimes, healing begins not with being fixed, but being held. Not in the roar, but in the whisper. And maybe you're in that wilderness now. Maybe the victory didn't feel like a victory. Maybe you're tired after doing everything right. Let this story be your shade tree. Rest here a while. They say the most dangerous moment isn't the battle it's after. After the adrenaline fades. After the crowds have gone. After the noise. Because sometimes, surviving a storm leaves you quieter than the storm itself. If you're watching this at night, or in a moment that feels like night, consider subscribing. Here, we don't rush through stories. We breathe them in. Let your heart slow down with us. Let's return to Elijah. You've heard the whisper, not a roar of divine rebuke, not a command to man up, but a gentle voice offering presence. But here's the strange part. Elijah doesn't feel different yet. After hearing God, after 40 days of travel, after bread from heaven and sleep under angelic care, he still says the exact same thing. I've been zealous. I'm all alone. They're trying to kill me. Doesn't that surprise you? Even after a holy encounter, his feelings haven't caught up with the truth yet. And God doesn't scold him for that. Instead, God gives him something better than a pep talk. He gives him a path forward. God tells him, go back the way you came. Not because nothing happened, but because healing often means revisiting the places that broke you with different eyes. He tells Elijah to anoint new kings. But more than that, he tells him to anoint Elisha, a prophet who will walk with him. One who will continue the work. One who will not leave him alone. And then, God says the line that must have changed everything. Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal. Wait, you thought you were the only one. You believed the lie that you were the last righteous person left. But here's the strange truth. Your loneliness lied to you. Elijah wasn't alone. He just felt alone. And how often do we confuse the two? There's something else unusual in this story. The number 40. Elijah travels 40 days and nights to reach Horeb. In Hebrew tradition, 40 is not just a number. It's a season, a womb, a wilderness, a transformation. Moses was on Sinai 40 days. Israel wandered 40 years. Jesus fasted 40 days before his ministry. And now Elijah walks 40 days, not to escape, but to be reformed. God doesn't waste wilderness. He shapes in silence what can't be formed in noise. Elijah obeys. He goes back. And that's when he meets Elisha plowing a field, ordinary and unaware. Elijah doesn't give a long speech. He simply takes his cloak, his mantle of authority and identity, and throws it over Elisha. It's a silent invitation. And Elisha without delay leaves everything. He slaughters the oxen, burns the plow. No turning back. He chooses the road of dust and uncertainty to walk beside a weary prophet. And maybe Elijah doesn't say it out loud, but something inside him begins to breathe again, because finally he is not alone. But let's pause here, because if this was a movie, maybe you'd expect everything to get brighter now. It doesn't. There are still threats, still wars, still kings who hate him, but something's changed. Elijah is no longer walking through it alone. That's often how God heals. Not by removing the storm, but by placing someone in the boat with you. And not just someone, the right one. Let's not miss the quiet miracle. God never shamed Elijah for collapsing. He never said, you should be stronger. Instead, he made space, fed him, let him sleep, let him speak his sorrow twice. And he didn't just give answers. He gave a companion. So what does that mean for you? Maybe you're in the wilderness now. Maybe you're convinced no one understands, no one sees, but the truth is, you are not alone. There may be 7,000 more than you know. There may be an Elisha waiting just ahead, but even if you don't see them yet, God does. And he's not done with you. If you're still watching, let me tell you this. Sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is rest. Eat, cry, say the same thing twice. Let yourself be touched by grace, even when you don't feel strong. Elijah was still loved in the cave, still chosen when he collapsed. And so are you? What if the ending isn't an ending? What if the wilderness wasn't your last chapter but the beginning of something eternal? If this message has spoken to something in you, would you consider liking and subscribing? Not to support a channel, but to walk together in stories that heal. This journey isn't over yet. Let's keep going. Years have passed. Elijah, once weary and alone, now walks with Elisha beside him. He's not the same man who collapsed under the broom tree. Yes, the world is still dark, but his eyes are different. He's seen God in the silence. He's seen companionship replace despair. And now, he's about to see something the world has never seen before. They walk together to Gilgal, then to Bethel, then to Jericho. At every stop, prophets come out to Elisha and whisper, "Do you know the Lord is taking your master today?" And Elisha replies, "Yes, I know, but do not speak of it." It's as if the heavens themselves are holding their breath. A transition is coming, but it won't be ordinary. Finally, they reach the Jordan River. Elijah takes off his cloak, the same one he once threw over Elisha, and strikes the water. The river parts. They walk across on dry ground. It's as if God is saying, "This servant walks the path of Moses, of Joshua." A parting river, a holy moment. Then Elijah turns to Elisha and says, "What can I do for you before I am taken?" Elisha doesn't ask for wealth, fame, or safety. He says, "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit." It's not a selfish request. In Jewish tradition, the firstborn son received a double share, not out of greed, but responsibility. Elisha is saying, "Let me carry your calling. Let me carry your burden. Let me be faithful." Elijah responds, "You've asked a difficult thing, but if you see me when I am taken, it will be yours." And then it happens. Not death, not decay, but fire. Chariots of fire, horses of fire. And in a whirlwind, Elijah is lifted from the earth. No grave, no farewell, just glory. Elisha cries out, "My father, my father, the chariots and horsemen of Israel." And then, Elijah is gone. Let's sit in that for a moment. Elijah, the prophet who once asked to die, is one of only two people in all Scripture who never experienced death. The other was Enoch. The man who felt abandoned is honored beyond imagination. The man who said, "It is enough, Lord," is told, "No, it's not over. Come home my way." This is not just a happy ending. This is redemption. Elisha picks up the fallen cloak, the symbol of calling. He walks back to the Jordan, strikes the water, and it parts again. The same God who was with Elijah is with him now. Because God's comfort doesn't end when one man's story ends. It continues. Through you, through me, through generations. But maybe you're wondering, why does this story matter? Why tell a tale of an ancient prophet? Because you are not so different. You have moments of collapse. You've prayed under broom trees of your own. You've felt alone, maybe still do. But the God of Elijah is still speaking, still whispering, still sending companions, still lifting weary ones into glory. Here's one more truth, maybe the most breathtaking of all. Centuries after Elijah is taken, we see him again. Where? On a mountain, standing beside Jesus. At the Transfiguration, the one who once hid in a cave now stands in unveiled radiance beside the Son of God. That's what God does. He takes broken, tired people and brings them into his light. Maybe you don't feel radiant right now. Maybe you're still under the broom tree. But take heart. You don't have to end there. There's more. There's always more. If this story has touched your soul, would you let me know in the comments where you're watching from? Tell me what part of Elijah's story speaks to you. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. Not for numbers, but for the quiet echo that reminds us we're not alone. This is your moment to rise, to rest, to return. Because the God who met Elijah still walks through wildernesses, still whispers, still waits.